On this Thursday, it's time for Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan as we talk about Beatrice City issues and having survived our first major snowstorm of the season. That was a doozy.
Yes. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
It was. I mean, I think we can count our lucky stars that we didn't get what part of Kansas got. Yeah. That storm just kind of, they said they'd have a pretty sharp cutoff, and I think it did because I don't think Lincoln got much, if anything, and Omaha got nothing.
In Lincoln or something. Yeah.
But I know that my son is at Fort Riley, and he called me. He called me that Sunday morning, and said, "How's your snow?" And I said, "Well, it's not too bad." He says, "Well, I've just got 10 inches off my sidewalk," and he called me again in about 3 hours, and he says, "I just took another 4 off."
Yeah.
And so they got, so I went on the radar and I noticed it was just kind of swirling right around Manhattan and Kansas City, and so the wind caused a little bit of issues there, and I think what we get probably 5 or 6 inches of
right
snow.
Around 5.5 on average. There,
so it was for us, a significant snowfall, but when I think about the totals there, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, there was an area in northeast Kansas. We saw some 17 to 18-inch totals by the time it was all over. And that's not, counting, they had a little bit more ice that fell ahead of time, too. So I know Kansas City had a huge problem with snow there, things you don't usually see to that degree. But it was one thing that was interesting that I noticed locally, and of course the street department here puts down that liquid de-icer ahead of time to sort of, lots of times it's on bridges only if not a big storm is coming, but this they did on other streets too. And I did notice even with the really cold temperatures we had over the weekend and early Monday, that really helped melt, or at least helped melt a few areas off on streets.
It really did. Again, I think the street crews did a phenomenal job. Mm-hmm. They got out early for the emergency routes and kept those open. I know in the morning, I believe they went at least by my house a couple of times trying to keep some of the residential areas open, and then they kind of waited to see what the snow was going to do because, I'm like me, I like to go out and get rid of that snow off my driveway. I'm one of those, I guess.
But when it's still snowing.
Yeah, when it's still snowing. But, I looked out about 10 and it kept snowing, 11 and 12. Mm-hmm. And it finally quit about 4. And I guess, we need to recognize that our street crews get out and get things done, whether it's a Sunday or a Monday or whatever time of day it is. And I think they did a really good job. Certainly we've got a lot of snow. I think, we'll probably have some calls of sidewalks that didn't get didn't get scooped. But I think for the most part, all the residents did a good job there. Mm-hmm. So all in all, I'm very, very pleased and have always been pleased with the snow removal in Beatrice well before being mayor.
One thing the city did do, it issued that snow emergency well in advance. I think it was to start at 5 p.m. on Saturday through like 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. on Monday. The fact that snowstorm hit mainly on a weekend, do you think that helped out with maybe preventing some of the vehicle obstructions you might see for snowplow?
I think so. I think that helped. I think giving an early warning and reminding people, continuously of what's coming. And, I think for the most part, a lot of people listened to the weather and, like all of us, thought we're going to get a whole lot more than 5 inches, so we better take care of that. And so I think for our first major snow, I think things went really well.
I did yesterday afternoon see a grader go by KWBE out here. I suppose just a little cleanup in areas where you have some leftover snow or vehicles have moved it around a little bit, that type of thing.
Well, and like last year, we don't know if 2 weeks from now another big snow is coming. Sure. So the more we get things cleaned up from this snow and snow pushed back, we've got room for more snow. Because that's the other issue that you have is that, you get 3 or 4 big snows and where are you going to go with the snow?
Yeah.
It starts, narrowing your streets just because there's no more place to push it back.
And clearing it a little bit closer to the concrete, I suppose, then helps the melting in more areas, and then things get back to normal.
And I think we're going to have I looked at the 10-day forecast. I think we're going to have a lot of melting going on, and that's good.
Yeah. Got a little chance of snow or rain today or freezing rain, but good thing the temperature is recovering a little bit today, so that should help out further. But a lot of overtime for, those crews are in shifts all the way through around the clock. I had the chance to get up Monday morning, no, maybe it was Tuesday morning, when they were doing the ridge removal
Sure.
downtown. And it's interesting to watch that, how efficient they are and how really little time it takes to move tons of snow, a lot of snow from downtown.
There is, and we're very fortunate because we have some cross training that has taken place. So not only do you have the street crews, you have people from other departments that help out to do that, and yeah, they do have it pretty well perfected, and they take good care of their equipment, and we have good equipment to get rid of it.
Okay. Talk about another issue. One that happened on Monday night was the Beatrice Area Solid Waste Agency Board, made up of yourself, the council, a couple of county board meetings, board members approved the bid for the new building and entrance at the new landfill. The second half of the bid process went pretty well from $1. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it came out pretty well for you, it looked like.
Well, and what it really did was kind of put us back, I would say, on target for our estimated cost for the whole project, which I think is, again, it's a lot of money. It'll probably be around $13 million, but maybe we'll have a new landfill and a number of cells ready to go when we need them, so it's a very, very wise investment. But yeah, the bids came under what we had, the design team had estimated. If you remember, the dirt work came over, and so when you put the two together, I think we're just a little bit under where we thought we would have to be. So that's really, really good news. I think we're ready to move forward.
Yeah. If it weren't for that darn winter storm, you might have already seen a little earthwork.
We would have seen some things moving out there if we wouldn't have had the snow, but that's okay. We'll be on track. We still have enough space estimated through, I think, October of 2025, or maybe a little bit longer at our old site. So, it'll be pretty close to the wire.
Yeah. And for those people that might complain that my taxes are going to go up again, no, it's an enterprise.
That is correct. It is a revenue generating organization, and it is not. It's not paid for by tax dollars. It's paid for by the revenue that we charge all the haulers that bring trash into our city dump, just like the Enterprise of Mars. They have a truckload charge. And so the revenues that it will generate will pay for the landfill itself. And
the number of customers has been growing over time.
It has. Yeah. It has. And again, there's not a lot of landfills anymore. And so if you don't have a landfill, then you have what they call a transfer station, and then you're at the mercy of where there are landfills. And the further away you are from that landfill, your trucking costs increase. And so if you factor all that in, it really was the right decision to build a landfill, because we even discussed, I was on the council when we discussed, do we do a transfer station, do we build a landfill? And it really came down to, okay, we need to be in charge of our own destiny, because we know there's not going to be a lot of landfills. I mean, probably that all of our trash would be in a transfer station, would have been hauled to Milford. So there would have been a trucking charge and a trucking fee and the transfer fee, and that gets expensive as well. Yeah. It's littler chunks, but at best, this is not. It would not have been as economical, efficient as having your own landfill.
With the earthwork to be done, and then of course the building, the entrance, the scale house, all that. Best case scenario, if you had a hope for when will the first cell be open and be ready to use, what would you be looking at there?
September, October of this year.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for.
Okay.
We're hoping for, and I think each cell, there's 7 of them. Each cell is supposed to last us approximately 10 years. Yeah. So
none of us will be around to see the end of the new landfill.
I can guarantee you, I will not be sitting in the seat of mayor in 10 years.
Before you take a break, I need to double back on the snow thing. We did get, it might be snow related, but we had a question from a caller. Was wondering, why are people being allowed to park on the wrong way on some of the streets? In other words, and we think of, as we grew up, we park on the side of the street where we're headed in, or the right
Correct.
side. But they're saying some are parking pointed the other way on a side. So,
well, that is something that I'm going to have to visit with Jay Murphy, our head of the police department. first of all, I'm not sure if there's an ordinance in Beatrice about whether you can park on the wrong side of the road or not. So that's kind of a first place to start. But so I really would have to do some background to find out the whole story there, because I'm like you, and traditionally you parked in the direction that the traffic flows, and I see occasionally a car parked one way or another in the wrong direction. Don't know if it was snow related or it's just kind of a habit, but it's something that we'll relay to the police department, and if it is an ordinance, it'll be one of those things that they can consider enforcement.
All right, back with more on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan today to talk about city-related issues. I thought Monday night it was kind of a neat, kind of capsulated review of what happened in 2024, because sometimes when you go through various projects and you pick a point in time, you talk only about that, kind of forget some of the things that went before that and some of the work that was done this year. But quite a bit was accomplished in Beatrice in 2024.
We had a really good year. I think the thing that I wanted to maybe draw attention to, and they did on Monday night, was, so everybody knows about the RAISE grant and the fact that we got $21.3 million, which is a highlight. But I think if you look at the other things that were accomplished, I think they're just as important. If you look at how we've used the building where the old fire station was, I think what we've got, probably a lot of people don't know, but a nice youth center that is in there. You've got the food pantry that's in there. They redid the courts, the auditorium court, and also made sure that it not only took care of, basketball, volleyball, it also was turned into an indoor place to play pickleball, which has had a lot of interest.
Vehicles out there.
Yeah. So and then efficiently we were able to also, move a city office or department there as well as we used that space. So that building's being utilized in really, I think, a very good way. I think, highlighting also, Hannibal Park powered by Pinnacle Bank. I think that's great. That was our first endeavor into, some contracts for advertising and went really well. And you'll see a lot of other improvements over the next couple of years there. Had a couple of street projects, which, they're maybe not real glitzy, but...
I'd almost forgotten about the 13th Street one. I'm sure the residents out there didn't, because there was a time where you had to kind of work around that. But
turned out really well. Team in construction did a great job on that project. And, the big project that people probably now just think about everyday traffic is 33rd and Lincoln. And that project not only was ahead of schedule, I think the contractor there did a really good job. So, there's a number of really good projects that were done during 2024.
Everybody had such a heartache about a roundabout, and quite honestly, when I go through there every time, I think how much nicer that is to get around that area and how much nicer traffic flows, because you're just slowing down to move through the area. I imagine at school, the beginning of the school day or afterward, it gets a little crowded, but you have other entrances and exits out there at the new school properties, so it seems to have worked out pretty well.
If you look at roundabouts, they no matter where you put them, they have the highest safety rating for not only vehicles but also pedestrians. I think that one of the things that, and I'm sure they planned for the future, and so I don't want to knock Lincoln or not, but if you go down a couple of those roads, you can see, you can have 3 or 4 roundabouts in like 5 or 10 blocks. I think it's Yankee Hill might be one of them. And I'm sure they're planning for, and they're in fields, so it kind of looks like, well, why do you have all those roundabouts? And I'm sure they're planning for the future. But I also think that you have to be prudent, and it's not the end-all, be-all solution, but it certainly is a great solution in traffic areas where you need to move cars efficiently, quickly, and safely.
You mentioned that area of Lincoln where you see several of them. I think of the one where you take the cutoff that would go to Nebraska City as you're heading north. Between there and then getting into, say, Pine Lake Road or somewhere, there's like 3 or 4 of them there. But still, would you rather take that, or would you rather face like 3 or 4 sets of stoplights?
Right.
You have stoplights have always, according to police officers, have been places where a lot of accidents happen because people aren't paying attention.
Well, that and when you're when you pull up to a stoplight and you're the only one there and it's red and it's a long stoplight, you're going,
why am I doing this?
Well, I'd like to just kind of roll right on through, but you can't. Red means stop.
Yeah. It's getting used to something new, but
that's right.
And we just have one in Beatrice so far, so
right.
That's all you have to put up with.
And I think in the future you're probably going to see a couple of more. I don't think there's anything in the next couple of years where you'll see a roundabout, but I think it will be done. And the Safe Streets for All plan really helped us identify where our traffic endangerments are. And that's what the plan was designed to do. So now that we have a plan and it's drawn up, we need to follow that plan because it really is going to put Beatrice vehicles and pedestrians in the best safe spot.
Okay. Before we take another break, a quick thing on, of course, you have new council members, a new seating arrangement on the council there. I'm trying to get used to all of that. But also the potential for maybe reworking committees or having people on maybe other committees they've served on or doing some switching. Are there going to be many changes there, or did anybody express a concern to say, hey, I'd rather be on this committee rather than this one?
We'll probably see some changes. I'm a firm believer of putting some people that either have some strengths or some, what I would say, vested interest in a committee to go on to that committee. So we'll have some changes. One of the things that I guess I get the pleasure of doing is figuring out the committee assignments, and some people will be happy, some people won't, but that's kind of the way it works. So there will be some changes, and I think we're contemplating the possibility of a couple ad hoc committees as well. There's a few projects that we might want to look at, and I think the committee format has worked pretty well. I think we've got a lot done through that committees. I think one of the things that has been mentioned at a couple of council meetings over the past year or two was the duck pond at Chautauqua. There's some things that need to be done there, so that's a perfect opportunity to have, maybe a committee of 3 council members there on that project. There might be a couple other opportunities as well. And then we have to take a look at some of the committees we have, how many ordinances are we going to look at? Is that committee still really need to go full tilt, or do we maybe back off of that because we've got people assigned on some of these other committees? I can guarantee you that the downtown committee will maybe have a little different makeup, but it certainly will be one of the committees, as well as Dempster's. It may have a little bit of different makeup. I don't think you'll see any changes in the leadership of those 2 committees. I know you won't, because they've done a really good job. And I just think that there's some strength from some of the new council members that we can put on those committees that will enhance them.
I think years ago, if I remember right, you used to have, I think it was just 2 standing committees. There was management and budget, and I think public properties long ago. And I remember that they would meet separately, but on maybe the same night at the library, one in one room, one in the other. But then you got into the point where some council members on one committee wanted to find out what the other one was doing too, and then it got to be kind of a confusing thing. So it looks like the setup is a bit better now, I suppose.
I think so. I think budget's a perfect example. Having a committee for budget and then bringing it to the council, you've got 8 individuals that have a vested interest in the budget. And
why not just bring it to the body?
So you just need to bring it to the body. And there's a different time and a different place of structure when you talk about management. But, when you think about what the city council and the mayor's role are, is we are at the higher level oversight, policy, procedure. We're not in the day-to-day management of the city, and we should not be, because we have very talented people there. And so we need to ensure that what committees we have don't try to run the city when we've got talented people doing a good job already.
Yeah, you have agency heads, you have a finance administrator,
right.
You have a city administrator, enough legal counsel to work through things. So
right. So I think that's one of the things that I've always kept in mind and have talked about to all the council members of remember where our role is. We have an important role because we set policy and procedures, high level, oversight. But we have great people that run the day-to-day operations.
Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today to wrap things up with Mayor Bob Morgan. A couple of things to touch on here. Have a consulting study on, or not study, but recommendations on grading for a detention pond area at the Gage County Industrial Park, and then possibly the need for a second one a little bit southwest of the park there. The one you're dealing with now is basically the little pond, isn't it, that people have seen?
Yes.
There, on, what is it, Sargent Street?
Right, it is.
Right, yeah.
It is. And, we have people that might be interested in the lots around it. Mm-hmm. And the last thing you want to do is, if you don't know how much you have to extend that particular detention pond, what you don't want to do is sell the land and then have to buy it right back because you need it. And so the study's going to tell us exactly what the grading plan is and how we can formulate that. Then we'll come back and we'll replat that whole area, and then we'll be able to let people know, if you want to buy this lot, here's what the actual lot is. We've already taken care of the drainage, and we can move forward.
And on each new development, maybe not just in that area, but any area of the city for that matter, a better approach to have the city own those retention areas, do you think, in all cases?
I think I hate to use the word all,
yeah.
but in most cases.
Practical, I guess.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. I think, years ago you didn't have a lot of water control and runoff control. We did two studies, the Tributary 44 and the one out of Belvedere. Had we had retention and detention ponds, 20 or 30 years ago, it might have been a different place, but it wasn't required.
Yeah. Yeah, and more concrete, more runoff. And
right.
Sometimes you're not really certain exactly where it'll go, where
right.
it'll end up in heavy rainfall.
So,
situations.
it's this. I think it's good. As serious as we're taking the water runoff.
Yeah. Wanted to ask you about, and it's a little bit off the beaten path because it's not a local issue here, but just seeing the wildfire problems of the last few days in the Los Angeles areas. And, of course, we don't have to deal with Santa Ana winds that are 80 to 100, 110 miles an hour. We have other hazards just like any other part of the country, but kind of brings up the idea about what if something like that happened, say, in the Beatrice area. Of course, we have different terrain, not as many trees. You have a mountainous area out there, a lot more dry fuel due to drought and things like that. But this past year, we saw, our own wildfires go across farmland, areas where the grass or trees, and some, pretty close to communities. I guess it kind of points up that you need to be ready for things, even though you think they might not happen ever, but they could.
Well, I agree. I think that if you look at the rural fire departments and the Beatrice Fire Department and our neighbors around, they have thought about that, and they do have some plans. One of the things that I think is maybe a little bit different than maybe California is we are in Nebraska, and we know, how do I say this nicely? we do know that a number of people are going to step up and help and have the ability to help. So if you look at those wildfires, you had a wonderful response from the city departments and also from all the volunteer people. But we also know that those were really spreading pretty fast. Yeah. And you know what? You had a lot of farmers who jumped in their tractors and were able to disc up what you want, I guess, which, for lack of a better word, fire lines, so it didn't jump. You had a farming community that wasn't afraid to hook up their cattle trailers and help the farmers who have cattle in the way load up and move them to a new location. So, we've always been really good about trying to figure out how to help our neighbors. And I think, that devastation could happen. I think we had some pretty high winds there. It's not uncommon to see a 50 or 60 mile an hour wind fuel a fire. But we also have people that are willing to step up and really help. And I think that's a tribute to everybody in this state.
Long ago, formation of mutual aid associations where fire departments will drop what they're doing. They'll head to wherever the problem is. That seems to have been a kind of a critical step taken for this area that has helped out.
It is. And I think, over the years, they've gotten better and better. I think at one point in time with mutual aid, one of the big issues was, this fire department uses this band of radio and this uses this band of radio. But I think they've made a really concerted effort so everybody's talking to each other at the same time. And I think they've really done a pretty good job of, incident command. So if the fire is more in somebody's area, that chief takes over the command of that fire, but has people that he can assign to go other ways. So it's kind of like you've got a chief and a lot of people there that can fight the fire, and he can distribute that workforce where he needs them.
In Beatrice, I imagine hydrant placement has been very important. I forget how many the town has. It's a sizable number, and they have like different pressure levels of water that can be sent through. But are you confident that in areas where, let's say you had, like a fire last year in southwest Gage County, that one moved close to Beatrice, you would have enough hydrant water capacity to do the job to protect areas?
We do. And another maybe little known fact, you might see fire hydrants painted a different color.
Shows there how many pounds per
shows the water pressure. So
volume.
It isn't that we ran out of paint. But it does show what that will do. And we're very fortunate. We've got a good fire department in the city. It's unfortunate that we've had a number of fires, in December. But they do a great job. And again, I think we just need to be thankful we live where we do.
Yeah. Coming up, not next Monday, the Monday after that, council meeting, the last one of this month, you're going to add a work session to that. Tell us about that.
The work session will start at 6. It will focus in on probably a little bit of difference of what MARS, being the trash collecting agent that we, business enterprise that we have, and BASWA, which is the Beatrice Area Waste Management, which is building the landfill. I think the goal there is to understand that there's a difference between the two. And yes, MARS is a customer of BASWA, but how that whole thing works and why it's important to have customers to basically feed the landfill. I guess it's a step to kind of, there's a number of rumors or whatever that have been out there, and I think it's time to just bring people together, or the council together, and we'll talk about what the differences are between the two, because they are two distinct organizations.
All right. Mayor, thanks for being with us again.
Thank you.